All right, we are live. So I'm here with Brian Ngo. Brian was the former president and founder of Columbia College's Student Veterans of America chapter. He was also, more importantly, the creator of the 24-hour Student Veteran Sleepout for homeless veterans. Brian, could you just give me like a little bit of rundown of what the Student Veteran 24-hour Sleepout is?
So the 24-hour sleep out was a way for us to empathize with our veteran brethren who have kind of maybe through life have fallen astray and found themselves homeless. And through collaboration of the group, I know that Matt Petruno was definitely he was a huge proponent in getting the first one set up and help facilitate everything and develop everything out. And it was great because it allowed us to really give everyone a perspective on what it is to be homeless, only a small perspective that is, what is to be homeless, and then to show about the military comradeship that still exists today.
So going a little bit further into just kind of the camaraderie as well as some of the bringing the empathizing factor into all of that, as you mentioned before. Could you go into a little bit of detail as to why that's kind of important to empathize with your veteran brothers and sisters who are homeless, especially here in Chicago and nationwide?
Well, when it comes to that is, you really can't understand what someone goes through on a daily basis when they're, oh, hold on, we might have to redo this. I have my origin with the pop-ups, I just realized.
That's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Take your time.
Okay, retake from that. Yeah, it's important to give a understanding or gain an understanding about what it is to be living on the streets, because you if you're not there, you don't understand, and people can't really see that. And what happens is, in the military, they teach you that the guy to the left of you and to the right of you, that individual is going to save your life someday or possibly do so. And how does that make a difference when you're out of the military? The same aspect comes into play as people who volunteered with the willingness to sacrifice their life if need be for the way of life of the nation. I don't see how that aspect changes just because you're no longer active duty military. That's something that's ingrained with you from that point on.
So the empathizing for you and for myself comes from the fact that we both are, veterans. Myself being, 4-year Navy vet, so I obviously very much empathize with the issue. How about you going a little bit into why you empathize yourself being a veteran?
I mean, if there's one thing that the Marine Corps had ever taught us is that it's a brotherhood. It's something that even to this day it exists. I talk with my buddies, and there's still a bond there. I mean, recently I traveled to Phoenix because a friend passed away, and we went there to spend time during Thanksgiving with his family and have a funeral service for him. But it was ridiculous the amount of guys who turned out. I doubt people from that you haven't seen in over 4 years would really do that in a civilian life. It's very rare. There was at least like 10 of us, and it just shows that the bond that you develop with individuals is almost greater than your family, because they understand you. You've been through the same experiences, the same hardships, the worst of the worst and moments in your life to some of the best moments of your life, and that doesn't change. And anyone who ever donned the uniform, they have that understanding as well as I of them. So that's why it's so important for us to keep that alive, is because it's who we are.
So let's go into a little bit about the event. You started this back in your first year when the SVC was just barely into its it just started off. What spawned the idea for doing a 24-hour sleep out?
I mean, we were talking about events that we could really do to bolster the community. We were trying to think of a way of oriented not just veterans, but the actual community of Chicago overall. And us as a group in the beginning had a meeting and we talked about it, and everyone threw in their input and ideas. And there are a lot of things that we have skills that aren't applicable to civilian life, but the one thing, that unifying factor that all of us military is that we have a hell of ability to endure a lot of terrible things, especially being outdoors. So I think that was the main idea, was that how can we really create an impact with the skills that we have, still being students and all. And so that's where it was born. Is just us saying like, well, we're really good at sleeping in crappy weather. Why don't we all just do that and see if we can, raise money for homeless veterans and bring awareness about homeless veterans and the plight that they face by really experiencing it for a day.
Just as important as going into some of the organizations that that you've raised money for. Eddie Beard, I remember, was one of them. Also Volunteers of America. What was the other one? I almost missed up. What was the second one that we raised money for? Do you recall that one?
Feather Fist.
That's right. When I think total count, it was like somewhere above $35,000 to date, which is no small chunk of change for any organization. But despite regardless of the amount of money, how important would you say is the awareness we raised, or that you raised, amongst the community in Chicago as well as nationwide?
I think the awareness that we raised is almost more than the money, because I think people forget that there are veterans who sleep on the street. They see veterans every day, but they fail to realize that a lot of the people that they see every day in their lives that are homeless are veterans, and that they're there. There are the stereotypes where people pretend to be veterans, or that are homeless, or people claim some type of veterancy. But to actually know that they're out there, men and women who serve their country, who donned a uniform, took an oath to protect it. I think that's it. That's what's most important, is the impact that has. And at the same time, any homeless veterans who receive service, or any homeless veterans who even learns about the Sleep Out, can look at that as almost a beacon of hope, and realize that bond, that comradeship, that ideology of never leave a man behind is still existing, and that people are still working and fighting for them.
That's good. So I was going to run some numbers by you, because I naturally have the same empathy. Not to mention I have the same importance, because I feel like raising awareness is just as important. And feel free to kind of cut in. Some of these were gathered last year by the U.S. Census Bureau, as well as from the Coalition for Homeless Veterans. They're saying that this last year there were over 49,000 homeless veterans in the United States. 1/3 of those veterans, possibly more, had served in some sort of combat role, ranging as far back as from Vietnam. That seems to be the majority of them too. As well as over 90% of those homeless veterans here in the United States had left the military with an honorable discharge, which I think kind of goes to show that it's not, it's obviously something a little more systemic than, they had done something wrong, they got out dishonorable, they did something bad. Like 90%, that's a lot, getting out of the military with honorable discharge. It almost seems kind of unfair that you get out of the military serving the combat zone and with an honorable discharge, and then all of a sudden, you're left, with whatever the circumstances, you're left, on the streets after, how many years. It was a recent statistic that was released also concerning, since the census only happened 5 or 6 years ago, that there is a projected near 11% of the veterans who are homeless right now. The 49,000 homeless veterans, there is a projected 11% who are post 9/11 veterans like you and I. And they say in about 10 years that percentage could possibly double, with not only the deaths of Vietnam veterans from homelessness, not obviously on the rise, but also on the rise of more and more post 9/11 veterans coming out. How does that impact you, knowing that more and more the men and women you probably served right next to you could be on the street tomorrow, next year?
And actually, this comes to a story from our first Sleep Out. Is one of the veterans receiving services at the homeless shelter decided to come and actually participate in the Sleep Out. Someone who was living on the streets decided to help the cause by going back to the streets, in a sense. And what was crazy was that he was Lance Corporal Deshaun Washington, and he walked up, and one of our members at the time was former Gunnery Sergeant Eric LaCour, and he recognized immediately because that was his junior Marine during time of service. So it really hit home, and it really made a huge impact to make us realize that, you know, it's not just about the older veterans, it's about the new veterans coming back. And it's there are a lot of issues when it comes to transitioning. There are a lot of issues when it comes to just figuring out what to do afterwards. And at the same time, there are a lot of stereotypes that people have about veterans that prevent them from really finding gainful purpose, gainful meaning life, and even gainful employment, which often can lead to the state that they fall themselves, that they fall into. And the thing that I think is the most important is that when it comes to post 9/11 veterans, the rise of that is, we need to show that yes, there's support out there, and yes, there are services, but there are also veterans out there who are reaching out, who served with them, who are trying to help in any way they can.
Just a few more questions as we go on, kind of on a more personal level with you. So going into why this is important. The organizations we've served in the past, in terms of the Eddie Beater, the Volunteers of America. Why do you think it's important to do some of these local organizations that we've worked with here in Chicago as compared to more on the national level? Where do you see more of an impact being made by supporting these local organizations in Chicago?
I mean, Chicago is a huge metropolitan area. It has, I think, the second largest VA in the nation. So just being the has a high population of veterans is the need for that. I think last time I looked at it, the number was over 700 veterans are in Chicago and Illinois alone that are that suffer from homelessness. So if you look at that factor and you look at the 49,000, that's still a good chunk of change just localized in a small area. Now, yes, there are national organizations that could benefit from the money, but at the same time, I think that here in local Chicago, us being based in Chicago, can make a greater impact to help serve our local community.
No, that's a really good point. I was even reading that somewhere that of the 700, close to 700 to even 1,000. It's kind of hard to say sometimes, because Lord knows that there is probably there's several other homeless veterans who are just not registered as as veterans either. They're probably just out there on the street, just going uncounted. That apparently a new statistic that close to a third of the homeless population in Chicago is veteran, which is surprising to think that there is, it's already surprising to think that over 49,000 in the United States, there are so many, but even that, a third here in Chicago, that's quite a number. It's to even think that maybe on any given day, of the countless, homeless people I see walking the street, that any one of them could be, a veteran.
Yeah. And you look at that and you look at the population size. Imagine if 49,000 are spread between 50 states, and that you have, say, in the higher areas where there's like maybe 1,000 to 2,000 homeless veterans. What about the lower population state? Having a high concentration of almost 1,000 veterans in the state of Illinois and in the city of Chicago is huge.
Yeah.
Because you look at a population where people enlist out of, more likely, and this is just me taking a stab at it, is saying places that are more remote like Vermont or maybe Maine, who have lower populations, their veteran population's a lot lower. But for us to have it in Chicago and Illinois, that's a huge factor, I feel. And not to mention, when it comes to that, there are factors where it comes to environment where homelessness is more severe. Chicago winters is a perfect example, where we had, 3 years ago, a polar vortex where temperatures were dipping into the negatives. And they said that basically if you were spent outside on bare skin in the cold temperatures, within 11 minutes, you could suffer minor cases of frostbite. So if you have no place to go and you're homeless, what does that really do and say to you? Or what does that really do to an individual who has to suffer through that?
Right. No, and that's a good point. I think that's why the 24-hour sleep out really serves as a purpose, because it puts into perspective not only for those sleeping out, but for those who are watching us sleep out, because we often push that kind of side of that to the curb, not really realizing it. But then when you put it up in the forefront, right in your face, sometimes it really sends a message. I know for myself, having done it 2 of the 3 years, both when it was snowing, really put a lot of perspective in myself, because even standing out there, even with a lot of cold weather gear, it was hard to bear. It was really hard to bear, because the snow is one thing when when it's day out, but when that wind kicks in, when when the night comes in, it can be a different, it can be it's a different environment. It's not even the same thing.
And it was only for 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine having to do that for a whole season.
Exactly.
I mean, so day by day.
Yeah. Yeah. No. It's strange. I think it's great because to give praise to you, I think it's praise because I think it's effective. It sends the message, and it gets the point across. So I was talking with the gentleman who we're doing who we're doing our sleep out with. His name is John Worthy, 10-year Army veteran. He runs the RTW Veteran Center out of the south side of Chicago, which is obviously full of we're actually a majority of the homeless veteran is populated. Actually, it's a huge concentration down there. And he discussed how this is a great event because this is something he's never heard before. And I was telling him about, I knew after seeing his organization that I really wanted to help him out and get his organization to the forefront, really make people aware of what he does. But he was talking about something kind of dreaming big, and I wanted to bring it to your attention because I want to get your idea about this in terms of going big. I want to see what you wanted out of this sleep out. Where do you see this sleep out going? And we're on our 4th year now. Where do you see it going in another 10 years? There's obviously something we can't handle, in the 4th or 5th year. Where did you see it going when you first started it?
I mean, it was really about raising awareness first, and then funds second. I mean, yes, funds are great for local institutions, but what was awesome is that the first year we were able to get national coverage. Mm-hmm. That was via Fox News, The Shep Show, and that was help spread national awareness that your veterans who serve your country are sleeping on the streets. Mm-hmm. Now, as time goes on, I would, and as well, the current president, mm-hmm. President Barack Obama, he had pledged to try to eliminate veteran homelessness, and I think that's still an admirable cause that can still be continued as the new president-elect comes into office. So I feel that in the next 5 to 10 years, we can try and hopefully accomplish by eliminating homeless veterans. And I hope that in 10 years that the sleep out's not needed at all, because we've succeeded in hammering the point, mm-hmm. bringing awareness, and creating change that allows that.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, and even to put it into perspective, this year we've had, going back to some of the statistics, 49,000. It's no small number. And thankfully, within the last 10 years, we have seen a huge drop. But still, at the same time, there's still many issues that need to be brought to. They need to be kind of addressed when it comes to a lot of the veteran homelessness, because regardless of the homelessness factor, there are a lot of circumstances that unfortunately prevent certain people from staying homeless, or rather keep them out of homelessness. Mainly PTSD, which can lead to substance abuse, or even injuries, which could lead eventually to substance abuse with over-medication of some sort. That seems to be a new thing that's going on, especially with this huge opioid craze. As you probably know just as much as I do, sometimes the biggest healer, or the biggest victims are the ones who just get thrown pills at. So I think we're stepping in the right direction, but I feel like you're right. I feel like there's still a lot of things to be addressed. So I guess for just kind of the last question to go off, if you wouldn't mind real quick, just giving a few details about yourself in terms of your service, when you served, where you served, and just any last things you want to say to the community who'll be watching this interview, what you want to say to them in regards to what you hope to see come out of this year's 24-hour sleep out.
Yeah. Well, I served from 2008 to 2012 in the United States Marine Corps, deployed twice overseas, once to March of Afghanistan in 2010, and then a second deployment 2011, 2012 on the 11th MEU, which serves on a Navy vessel in the USS New Orleans. And really, service, I think that everyone should really realize that the reason that this is such an important cause is because it's not about because they served, you have to serve them. It's really what it's about is saying that you're seeing that people are willing to sacrifice themselves. No, that's not even good. I don't know what I'm gonna say for that one.
Well, how about you? How about you going? Just kind of give me a, again, your personal regards as to, because I want to reiterate why the importance of the sleep out, not only just the funds, but also just the awareness. Because I think you really hit the nail on the head when it came to showing that that we can ignore it as much as we can, but out there is still any day you could be passing a homeless vet and we may not know it.
Yeah, are you cutting this, by the way, or is this just running the whole time?
No, I'm gonna cut it afterwards, obviously.
Okay.
So
I was like, oh my god.
No, I'm gonna cut it up because I'm gonna interlace a bunch of other interviews, so don't worry about it.
No, I think that I did serve, but I think what's really important for everyone to realize, whether you're a military or civilian, is to really realize that there are people who have done more and were willing to risk their life, and who have given a portion of their life for this country, whether it was 2 years, 4 years, or some who served 20, that they should not have to stay on the streets after sacrificing so much time, effort, some of them parts of their mind, some of them parts of their body, some of them parts of their soul. So what's really important is to realize is that we need to help these veterans because of what they've done and what they continue to stand for. And to raise awareness, yes, funds are great, but to actually raise awareness and to create a change, something that can actually spark a notion for people to realize that this is a problem that we can solve. 49,000 veterans that stay on the streets, and how much money was spent during Black Friday online is in the billions. And if every individual, for everything they bought, were to donate $1, or even every individual to donate $1 who purchased something during Black Friday, or to give it toward a cause like homeless veterans, it would be eliminated.
That really puts it into perspective too. So, Brian, real quick before I head out, if you wouldn't mind, just give me your just stating your full name and what you do, your job title.
My job title now or before?
Oh, no, that's fine.
Oh well, my name is Brian Ngo, and I currently work as a strategic planner at an advertising agency known as Sanders Wingo down in Austin, Texas.
Awesome.